Welcome to the University of Calgary Health Sciences Library tutorials. This session will introduce you to searching Medline. A question we often get at the Health Sciences Library is, why should I use Ovid Medline? Medline offers a step-by-step searching interface that makes selecting subject headings, subheadings, and limits easy. You will learn about these in this tutorial. MESH stands for Medical Subject Headings, which are used in both PubMed and Medline. All papers go through an indexing process at the National Library of Medicine, where individuals read the papers and assign a list of approximately 10 MESH headings that adequately captures the content of the paper. Papers that are in the database but haven't been indexed yet are called in progress or unindexed. We will talk more about these later. The whole point of MESH is to ensure that researchers don't miss any material on a topic. It's a controlled vocabulary, so if you were to search for cancer, the MESH heading of carcinoma would return all papers with that subject heading attached, which can result in thousands of results. By combining our MESH headings with Boolean operators such as AND or, that number becomes much more manageable. As we will see in a moment, the Ovid Medline interface will take you through a series of windows. Two options are Explode and Focus. Exploding a term includes any narrower or more specific terms with the search. Focusing allows us to retrieve papers where a desired MESH term is a major topic. Remember that papers are assigned with many MESH headings, and only a select few will be the main focus of the paper. Focusing isn't recommended for use in systematic review searches because it is too restrictive in what it brings back. The Scope Note is a great tool for non-subject and non-Medline experts. The Scope Note provides a definition, or a scope, for a MESH heading. There is often a section called Used For to confirm what alternate terms that particular MESH heading is used for. The entry date is important for those searching for new technology and practice change information. To obtain older or newer material, we may need to use a different MESH heading. On the next page, you'll have the option to apply a subheading to your term, which restricts the results to a narrower topic area. The use of subheadings depends on your topic. For example, if you search for nursing personnel in the hopes of learning more about organizational change and practice, you could select the subheading to obtain papers only on organization and administration. Just remember that this action will limit the amount of results that you get back. Not all papers are indexed. Some are in progress and others have yet to be started. To ensure that you don't miss anything in these categories, you can use a text word function. .tw will go through and find your term in the title or abstract of a paper. This function is great for acronyms and new jargon that hasn't been converted to a MESH yet. Be aware, however, that .tw loses context as it's not controlled vocabulary. You may retrieve a document that has the acronym you're looking for, but it may turn out to stand for something totally different. Asterisks are used in a function called truncation. This allows you to search for a word with an asterisk and retrieve all the possible suffixes of that word. Take care that the asterisk is correctly placed. Once a search has been completed, you will look for the Find It SFX button and follow the windows to obtain full text. If an electronic copy is not available, ensure you check to see if a print copy is. If neither is available, then use our speedy interlibrary loan service, which is free to use as a student, staff, or faculty member. So let's use this sample question and create our PICO. Do risk factor interventions prevent sudden infant death syndrome, otherwise known as SIDS? Right away, we can plug some information into our PICO chart, and a PICO chart is a really easy way to break down your searchable concepts. Our population, patient, or problem is sudden infant death syndrome. The intervention are just risk factor interventions, which isn't very descriptive, so we'll need to think more about what kind of terms to use. We don't have a comparison, but the desired outcome is SIDS prevention. To use Medline the most effectively, we can create a PICO chart. So in our P, we have sudden infant death syndrome, or we can call it by the acronym of SIDS, or some literature refers it to sudden unexpected infant death, and its acronym of SUID. Earlier we decided on interventions, but we need to think about synonyms or different interventions that we can search for. So here in my chart I've put community health intervention, or new parent education, or smoking cessation, addictions counseling, or sleeping environment. We don't have a comparison, so for the chart it's not applicable, and our outcome is prevention or harm reduction. Earlier in the tutorial I mentioned Boolean operators. The general rule is that you OR all of your synonyms and then AND your concepts together. So let's try this. The key to using Medline is practice and letting the database do the heavy lifting. Use your natural language and Medline will find the mesh headings for you. Use your Pico chart for the best organization and use Boolean operators correctly. Don't forget to create an account. This is so important as you can save your work and return to it later. So the first thing that you need to do is point your browser to library.ucalgary.ca/HSL, and it's probably worth bookmarking this page. Under Major Resources, select Medline. So what we're going to do is use our Pico chart and separate into columns our search terms. So let's start with our population, patient, or problem, which is sudden infant death syndrome. Make sure that when you put in your terms in the search bar that you keep the map term to subject heading box checked. Now simply select search. Here you have the auto explode, focus, and scope note option. Select sudden infant death to see if we can explode this term. To see if something can be exploded, you need to see if anything is indexed underneath your term. So if we were to explode this, it doesn't really make a difference because nothing is indexed and below sudden infant death. However, if you were looking for information just on sudden death in general, and you exploded that term, it would also include the more specific sudden infant death. The next thing that you'll do is press continue, where you'll be brought to the subheadings page. Now choosing a subheading really does depend on your topic. Generally, the best rule of thumb is that if you're just looking for information to begin, include all subheadings to go from broad to narrow. However, we're looking for very targeted information. And so as you can see over here, we have the option of actually limiting our results to prevention and control, which is the point of our topic. So we can go ahead and select that and press continue. As you can recall from our Pico chart, the next thing that we're going to search for is SIDS as the acronym. Now we can see if it's a map term to subject heading, and it just brings us back to the mesh, but I want to make sure that we were getting anything that's unindexed. So the function that we will use is the text word search. So after SIDS, put .tw, and that will find this acronym in the title or abstract of a paper. The third thing that we wanted to look for was sudden unexpected infant death. We can double check to see if that's a mesh heading. It's giving us some other options that don't quite fit the topic, and you can always check the scope note for further reading. So this gives us the definition, the year of entry, so notice the years of entry, and then used for. So if you were to look up the term cot death in that search box, it would bring us back to the mesh heading of sudden infant death. So that's what it's used for. Just to make sure that we don't miss any literature on this topic, let's do this as a text word search as well. And then finally SUID, because that's the acronym, and we're going to do a final text word search. Now we're going to use a Boolean operator of OR. What we will do is select line 1, line 2, line 3, line 4, and then tell Medline that we're interested in any of these terms. So what we will do is combine these with OR. And then on line 5 we have our grand total. Let's move on to our interventions. We started off with a pretty vague intervention, but then when we made our Pico chart, we really thought about the topic and then came up with a list of options. The first one we can look up is parents. And if you don't want to go to that subheadings page, you can actually select Include All Subheadings and bypass that screen and continue on to the search. Health education was an important one that we wanted to look at. Again, we will include all subheadings and continue. Smoking cessation was something that we were interested in. As well as substance-related disorders. Okay, over in the top right you'll see the red expand button. Go ahead and select that so you see the full strategy. Now we're going to do the same thing that we did with our population. We're going to OR all the interventions. So let's select 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, but before we carry on, we have one more that we need to look at, and that was the sleeping environment. So we can't forget that one. I always like to make the chart in advance because it makes it really easy to organize your strategy right away. So it's important to try your best to keep all your terms together. So let's look to see if sleep environment is a mesh. Okay, so these are the suggested medical subject headings. And I'm not quite seeing what we need. So what I think we should do is do this as a text word search. But if we're going to use a text word search to find this in the title or abstract, let's use some truncation. So after sleep, I'm going to put an asterisk here. So that will get sleep, sleeps, sleeping, or sleeper. And then environment, if you truncate that, it will get environment, environments, environmental. And then let's put in .tw. Okay, great. So now it looks like we have all the options that we want. So let's do 6 through 10. And again, we're going to combine this with OR because we need to find any of this information. Finally, we don't have a comparison, so let's look at the outcome. So our desired outcome is prevention as well as harm reduction. So here, what you can do is look at the scope note to decide what kind of prevention you are interested in searching for. And then finally, harm reduction. Okay, great. Harm reduction's at the top. You'll include all subheadings and carry on. Okay, and then we will do 12 or 13. So remember, we're ORing our synonymous terms, so going down the columns, and then we have to AND all of our concepts together in the Pico. So what we're going to do is select line 5, which is the total of our population. We're going to select line 11, which is the total of our interventions, and then line 14, which is our desired outcomes. And rather than selecting OR, because we don't want to get papers on either or of these three concepts, we want to combine it with AND so that we get papers that have all three sections within. Okay, and we get a very manageable 15 results. Just like in PubMed, there's a whole section for limits in this light blue box here. Don't forget about the additional limits right here. Do not use the full text limit, even though it's intriguing to do so. Remember that the university can obtain any papers that we don't immediately have through our interlibrary loan service. As with PubMed and any other database, we recommend that you search for demographic information such as age or gender as a limit rather than as a search term. Now that you're done, save your work to look at it later. So just at the bottom of your search strategy, you can save search history. This is really important so that you can come back to your work later, because you don't want to do all these steps only to have to repeat it the next time that you're returning to this topic. So if you haven't created an account before, up here you will create a new personal account. Once you've done that, you can simply log in. And just like your email, you can give this search a name. In the comments section, I like to specify which database I'm using. Ovid is the supplier of many different databases which contain different information. So you may be searching PsycInfo or Embase, and while the interface looks the same, the content is very different. So it's important that you note which database that you are in. And for organizational sake, I like to put in the last date that I ran the search so that you can keep it sorted. Always keep the type as permanent and then simply select Save. You can always email your search strategy to a colleague or a preceptor. So to do that, simply select just one paper and select Email. Scroll up a little bit, put in the recipient's name in the To field. Send the citation list as an attachment if you were just interested in sending the strategy. And then be sure at the bottom to include your search history, and then you can send your email. You can also export your results to a citation management software program such as RefWorks or EndNote, or convert it to a file and use a different open source program. So what you can do is select All and Export. Choose your program or file type. Always use the complete reference because these programs need all the juicy bits of metadata, so always select the complete reference and make sure that the link to external resolver and include URL are both checked, and then you simply export the citations. One thing to note is RefWorks sometimes can't handle more than 200, 250 results at a time, so we have a nice manageable result amount. If you had thousands of results and you didn't want to wait for the program to go through all the 1,000, you'll have to select a range. So when using RefWorks, I would use 1 to 200 and then 201, etc., and do it in batches. In the same vein, EndNote is similar, except it can handle a little bit more. So it can handle about 500 at a time. So again, you can send your results in batches. Remember, to get the full text, just select the Find It SFX link here and then follow the windows. So that concludes the tutorial on using Medline using Mesh. For more information, or if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact us at library.ucalgary.ca/hsl.